Good evening. I'm Mark Smith, motivational speaker and author of The Process. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. And as we begin a new journey of growth. Nobody would disagree that our journey has many, many twists and turns, but when you have to say they're rewarding. But what is constant is that some of our life encounters have been fueled by the choices that we've all taken. Now, at the beginning of the year, I started a new series in the process. And as with all my series, I created a mission statement, which is something that I want to ensure that everyone can use as a baseline for them to, as I always say, grow forward. A guide of a destination for my messages to come. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to listen carefully. In my life, I've learned not only who I am, but what I am. This allows me to understand the why in my process and to accept the blessings received to say, if I only knew then what I know now. What does that mean? That holds a whole host of things that are to come. So, tonight, let's talk about a key word in that acronym, in that introduction. And that word is life. Let's talk about it in a second. Let's get started. Welcome back. Again, if this is your first time watching, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to take a moment and weigh into our conversations tonight. It always fuels myself as well as my friends anytime that you actually have an opportunity to ask some questions as well as dial in. So, again, before I introduce my friend this evening, make sure that you weigh in from home, on the phone, wherever you're at, excuse me, we love those comments. Joining me tonight is a good friend from Atlanta, Georgia. Her story's made national news. She's also been the pioneer of several business ventures and took them from the bottom to the top of the world. She also has had a wide variety of trials and tribulations from adolescence into adulthood. Her name is Miss Jennifer Bowman Rogers, a good friend. Good evening, Jennifer. How are you tonight? Well, I think we got to unmute you. There you go.
Sorry about that. I'm great. How are you doing?
We are fine. We are fine. Thank you for joining us tonight. Can you do us a favor? Before we get started, tell our listeners tonight a little bit about who Jen Rogers is.
Well, I wear several hats actually. I'm a mom. I'm a business owner. I'm a founder of several different organizations. I'm a realtor. I'm also a convicted felon, and that is one that a lot of people are like, "Wow, I never would have thought that" when they meet me or when they hear about that I do in my life now. But I was born and raised in Georgia, a very small town in Northwest Georgia. And at the very young age of 17 years old, I actually got addicted to methamphetamines. And that lifestyle took me down a very dark road. I ended up getting indicted by the feds, and I did 2 years in a maximum security federal prison from 22 to 24. And then once I was released from federal prison, I got out and I hit the ground running, and I found a career in phone sales, selling advertising over the phone. I excelled very quickly there. Stayed at that company for 8.5 years. I fought custody of my daughter, and I got custody of her back during that time frame. Opened up an all-star cheer gym, sold that, and then went on to get into the fintech industry. And I worked for a company called Cabbage, which is now owned by American Express. And I built out several sales teams for them, and I just was unfulfilled. And so once I left that corporate world, I started my own companies, and in my own companies, I created an environment and a career opportunity for returning citizens coming home from incarceration. And what I did was I took on corporate contracts. Cabbage actually was one of my contracts. We did cold call lead generation for Cabbage, along with several other companies. And it was a room full of previously incarcerated individuals that I could identify with, that I helped them rebuild their lives and get custody of their own children back and find housing and just basically start over. So then we also introduced an advertising leg into that company that I designed myself. And both of the companies were very successful. COVID happened. We lost all of our contracts. And then from there, we went on to become a national advertising brand. And after that, continued to move forward. I actually got awarded a government contract to be a national public speaker inside of federal prisons. And in the process of that, I also developed another company that actually teaches people how to have an in-home business model like I created for returning citizens. And I teach individuals how they can actually take that business model and be their own boss and do it from home and not have to rely on anyone else to make six figures a year part-time.
Mhm. When you said hit the ground running, that's what you meant. Hit the ground running.
Yes.
Well, we're going to jump right into it tonight because I'm sure we're going to dial back and dialogue about some of the things that you just talked about as well. I've written, and all my series are called The Process. And I also like to really think about what the process means to everybody in their life. And I believe a cake is still a cake, but it's what the ingredients that you put inside that cake, which gives it that flavor or gives it that opportunity to blossom. You still have to heat it. You still need a heat source for it. So for me, the process means so many different things. And to me, every day is a process from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed. What does the process mean to you and in your life?
For me, the process initially started even before I came home from incarceration. And it was that feeling of, I never want to come back here again and experience this place and these feelings and these emotions and this confinement that I was in. So I made a conscious decision while I was incarcerated that I would get out and that I would never come back again. And so once I was released, I didn't really know what that would look like. I just knew that I had a new lease on life and I had a second chance, and that I was not going to allow no to deter me, or that I wouldn't accept no from anyone. And so I was in the federal halfway house, and this company had put an ad in AJC saying they were hiring for cold call advertising, sports marketing, actually, is what they said. And I had done cold calling before when I was 19 years old, and I was very successful. So I call from an illegal cell phone from that I'm not even supposed to have, from the halfway house, and I get this phone interview, and they actually want me to come in for a face-to-face interview. And so, I was able to get the halfway house director to approve that move, and I went. And ultimately, in the interview, I knew that they didn't know that I had been incarcerated. And so the interview is going well. They had never hired a woman in Atlanta before. And I just interrupted him in the interview. I'm fresh out of prison. I'd been in high security confinement for 2 years. So I was very raw in my delivery. And I just said, listen, I need to interrupt you. I want to be honest with you about who I am. And I said it just like this. I just got out of a maximum security federal prison. I was a drug dealer and a drug addict, and I am not that person anymore. And I'm going to make somebody a lot of money. And his jaw hit the floor. Like, he didn't know what to say. And I'm staring at him, and he stared at me, and it's like this awkward silence in the room. And he actually is the one that broke the silence. And he was like, holy shit, I wasn't expecting that. And he laughed, and then I laughed, and then they actually hired me. And 6 months later, I was traveling the country opening up offices for that company. And so the process for me is never giving up. It's waking up every day knowing that even if I don't feel comfortable in where I'm at in this moment, I've been much more uncomfortable in other phases or time periods of my life. And I know that I can move forward. And that at one point in time in my life, I prayed to have a moment like this. I prayed to have my daughter back, to own multiple properties, to be successful, to be able to prove to people that I'm not just a convicted felon, or I'm not a drug addict, or I'm not just an old, drug dealer. Like, I didn't want to identify with those things anymore. And so it was making a conscious decision every day to heal some old wounds, to change some old behaviors, and just to not give up. It is a race to the finish line every single day. And some days, my race to the finish line is just to ensure that I have the highest level of peace that I can have for that day. And that is okay. Because at the end of the day, if I'm not okay and I'm not operating at my highest self, I can't contribute what I need to contribute to the world and to my family and to those around me. So the process is ever changing. Today, my process might be that I have to log on and do an online class, and then I have to get on and do an interview, and then I got to be a mom after that. And then tomorrow, my process might be, you know what? Today is the day that I'm going to go out and I'm going to impact the world. So every day it's different. But the one thing that is consistent in my process is that I get up with a positive attitude, and I made the decision that no matter what happens in this day, I can control how I react. And that, in the end, controls the outcome.
Very well said. I've always said that we're in control of the thoughts we think and the actions we take. That falls on us. Nobody else has that power over us. That's something that we have. Now, you mentioned something that I kind of want to dial back into before we start to talk about our acronym or topic for the night. My wife and I both embark and teach in the workforce development, but we also, the majority of our population is reentry. And the one thing that you talked about was second chance, and how important it is that individuals gave you a second chance. From what you've seen out here in the industry, what is it that you feel prohibits individuals who have done their time, have overcome incarceration, have beat that stigma inside their own mind, but yet and still the employer doesn't give them that opportunity? How do you tell that person to not give up, to persevere and move forward?
It's hard because, and I'm at two reasons. One, that wasn't my experience, and I'm fortunate that that was not my experience. But on the other side of that, one of my former employees, and she was, not only is she one of my best friends to this day, but also one of the best employees that I ever had. And she is in that boat right now. She did 13 years, or no, 12 years in the state of Georgia for armed robbery, and she was a teenager when she went in. And she's actually been working for a company for the last 2.5 weeks doing collections, killing the company, killing the old sales reps, out closing everyone. And she gets a call today from their HR saying, your charges aren't in line with our company values, and we're going to have to let you go. And so it's like, how do you respond to that? And how do you overcome that if it's you? Because it's easy to look at someone else and say, you should do this. Don't give up. Keep going. Something better is on the horizon. But when it's you in the situation that it is directly affecting, how would I handle that if it were me? And I can tell you how I think I would handle it. And it would be that I would move to the next opportunity. I would knock on the next door. And if that didn't work, I would create my own opportunity. But not everybody thinks like that or feels like they have enough knowledge to even do that. And so when she called me today with that call, I was just like, I almost didn't even know what to say, because I know her and I know her work ethic and I know how valuable she is. And let's not even talk about as an employee, but just as a person. And what I said to her was, you know what? I truly believe that something greater is on the horizon for you. You never give up. She always applies for another job. She always fills in the gaps, whether it's taking side jobs here and there, doing Instacart with her mom, Ubering with someone she knows. Like, she's a hustler. And that's one thing that most people that have been incarcerated have, is they're hustlers. There are so many opportunities out there where you can find some type of hustle until you can find your main thing. And the other thing that I will say is, although I did start in an advertising company and I moved up very quickly, and that did afford me the ability financially to build a successful life very quickly, I have people reach out to me all the time and say, I can't find a job like that because of where they live. A lot of time has to do with it. And my response to them is, go to a company that hires convicted felons, even if it's McDonald's, even if it's a warehouse, even if it's something that you never want to do, right? Go there and you outwork everyone at that company. You show up early, you work late, you work overtime, and you prove yourself there. And as you move up there, the door will open more opportunities for you. Sometimes you just got to put in the effort and show or prove to someone, because you never know who's watching, whether it be a customer that has visited that fast food place or wherever you're working, or whether it's a boss higher up and they advocate for you. And that is so important in these situations, is everybody has to start somewhere. And even if it's what you feel is beneath you, it's no more beneath you than feeling confined in a prison cell. So you just got to put your foot out there and just take the first step. And even if it's not what you want to do, sometimes we have to do things that we don't want to do to get to where we do want to be.
That's true. I always think about when you talked about that, the hustle mentality, that poster that everybody's seen. The dream is free, but the hustle is sold separately. So
Yes.
you have to have that type of mentality to kind of change what you do. One of the things again that you brought up again, you talked about how individuals, or how they perceive or tell somebody how to do things. I've always had the adage that I can never tell anybody anything because I haven't walked in their shoes. Until I've actually walked down those shoes, I can't say how I react. I can empathize with you. I can talk. We can talk. I have that dialogue, but it's not about me saying I know how you feel, because I don't know how you feel.
Mhm.
But again, it's something that's a common practice of mine as well. I want to jump right into our topic for the night, which is the acronym of life. And when I wrote that, I said that it's letting go of inferior feelings expressed. Life. So letting go is a key part of, in my opinion, of growing, being able to take who you are, where you are, and expanding that to another level, because I don't believe any of us are called to remain stagnant. We're always called to move forward, or as I always say, grow forward. So, Jen, what I want you to do is, we want to dissect two acronyms, or two of those words, excuse me, inside that acronym. But we're going to do them one at a time. So for you, what would be that first word in that word of life? And what's important about it, and why?
For me, and this is two words, but they have to go together.
Yep.
Letting go. Letting go is the one that sticks out the strongest for me, because you have to be able to let go. And that is let go of positive experiences, negative experiences, situations that you may find yourself in that no longer serve you because you've outgrown that situation or that person or that relationship, or your work environment. And so for me, it's always being able to have enough self awareness to recognize that something isn't sitting right within myself any longer, or I am feeling stagnant, and it's time for me to let go, even though I may be afraid of what's in the future or the unknown. Especially when you come from the type of background that I've come from, and a lot of the people that follow me come from, you know what it feels like to not know what the future is going to be. So just let go. It's going to work out because it starts with you, and you've overcome so much already. So it's just in the power of letting go.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I ask anybody that's watching if that is one of your favorite ones as well, just chime in, just say letting go. For me, the first one again that comes to mind is the word inferior. Inferior. Something that I believe is that we are all purpose and we're never, or we weren't, are here, or we're not here as a mistake. So let me go a step further. I always think about something. I have a picture and a statement by Alvin Ailey. He said, one of the processes of your life is consistently breaking down the inferiority to consistently reaffirm that I am somebody. If
Mhm.
I kind of take an opportunity and go into that a little bit more in detail, it's doing that self reflection of who you are and
Mhm.
believing that no matter what happened, no matter where you come from, no matter what happened in your past, you are somebody. So
Right.
it's always that's always key and a key component in no matter what we do and what we think of ourselves. So with when you mentioned letting go, I thought about something else that I think is key as well. Is that we do something that is unique in the training that I do. We do something called light bag and heavy bag, and we propose a question to the individuals inside the training that if we would pay for a trip all around the world, what would you take? A light bag or a heavy bag? And quite a few of them will say, even though we tell them that we'll pay for the trip, they suggest a heavy bag because they don't think that we potentially will give them all the supplies that they need. But this message in that is to really break down to them and let them know that that heavy bag is a lot of that heavy things that they still have inside their heart. A lot of
Mhm.
the unforgiveness that they have inside them, a lot of the pain, a lot of the things that have gone on in their life that they just can't let go of. So I encourage everybody who's listening tonight, everybody who is speaking tonight, that please let go. Let go of exactly some of the things that have held you captive because they you can't let them control you. You control them. Again, remember we talked about it. The thoughts we think and the actions we take are also key. What would be another one for you, Jen, if you could think of that word life?
I think feelings, because feelings are subjective sometimes. Sometimes your feelings are subjective to your trauma or to your current circumstances that you find yourself in. So it is getting down to the bottom of, number one, who are you and where do these feelings or these thoughts come from? So that when you get to that place, you can determine, is this feeling or is it fact? And feelings may be your fact in that moment, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it is the actual truth of a scenario. And so when you better understand who you are as a person and your own feelings, you are more capable of letting go of inferiority, letting go, moving forward. And so I think feelings is a big thing because it's something that we hold on so tightly sometimes because it's how I feel, right? But sometimes those exact feelings are what is keeping you stuck or what are keeping you stuck in negative patterns, in a lack of moving forward. And so I think feelings is always a big one that I like to touch on when I hear someone say, I feel. And I'm guilty of that. I'm a big person that a lot of times will say, I feel, because I'm led with emotion sometimes. But just because you feel doesn't necessarily mean that it is right or true.
Hmm. Now, I recall something that my grandfather used to tell us all the time when we talked about feel and feelings. He used to tell us all the time, feelings are temporary. They're
Right.
temporary. They're
And they
truly,
and they change.
absolutely, they are going to change. For me, it would be expressed. When I wrote the message in the prior series of the process, it was called Procrastination, the Thief of Time. And I wrote a message that was entitled Glow. And everybody knows again, Mark's big on acronyms. I said Glow stood for gratitude living, others will witness. And over the course of my life, I had to learn that if I really was going to commit to growth, we never stop discovering new dimensions of self and self-expression in growth. So taking the time to express how I feel, it that can permeate in front of so many people. I mean, as well from and everybody listening, when you go on the stage it's showtime. It's
Right.
electric. Your energy, your passion, your drive, even in the short writings that you do, you have to convey those to individuals in an expressatory way to make sure that they are getting it and they're feeling it. So to me, express would be one of the key ones. I when I said something about growth just a second ago, and I want to kind of touch on growth for a second because for me, again, growth was a whole nother acronym. But unpacking that subject of growth is necessary for all of us to go to the next level. I had to unpack growth today, just self check myself to make sure that I am going where I should be going. When was it necessary for you the last time, Jen, that you had to unpack your growth?
That's a hard one because that's something that I feel like I do very often. Um, but I'm going to touch on during the pandemic because I had put my entire life on the line when I created these companies. And March, right when the pandemic first hit, my companies were on track to do $1 million in revenue that year. And then it shut the entire company down because a lot of our funding that we had coming in from revenue were from corporate contracts. And so that was the first thing that we lost. And our advertising company at the time was only local in Atlanta. We're in lockdown. And so now I'm at home, not only feeling like a failure in that moment as a business owner, but also I'm having to be a stay-at-home mom. And I realized very quickly, I don't know my children Monday through Friday from 8 to 5. And it was difficult because now I'm juggling multiple hats. I'm having to be a teacher. I'm having to make sure they're doing what they're doing. I've got employees that are relying on me. And my back was against the wall. And I remember just sitting there one day saying to myself, I know that I haven't come this far for this to be it. Like this cannot be the end. And so I had to put my thinking cap on and I had to sit and analyze where my business was, how was I successful outside of these corporate contracts. And so what I did was I'm like, okay, I have this great advertising product. Everybody in the Atlanta market that is using it are loving it. And so let's take it nationwide. I already know how to do it. I did this for 8.5 years previously, different market, but same concept. And so two of my employees that started with me from the beginning, we literally sat at home. I typed up a script and we cold called into this niche market that I created in. And we set up 40 new contracts just sitting at home. Really, no one really knew what they were doing, right? I literally wrote this script and I was like, it has to work because we don't have another choice but for it to work. And then once we saw like this is working, everybody starts getting excited about it, and we go in and we're sitting on 40 new contracts, and I open the office back up the first week of July, and I've got brand new sales reps. We are now a national advertising company. And that was on a Wednesday. And on the Saturday of that same week, my daughter wakes up sick, throwing up. And I take her to the emergency room to find out that she has a ruptured brain aneurysm at 16 years old. And so we are literally in Emory Neuro ICU for 6 weeks. I'm watching her fight for her life. I am running this company from an ICU hospital room. I've got customers calling me. I've got reps that I was never really able to train calling me. And I remember feeling the pressure in that moment. And I thought for a second, I'm going to close this company down. Like, this is too much. But then I was reminded everything that I had given up, everything that I had put on the line, everything that I had sacrificed to grow into that moment, that there was no way that I was going to let this situation, and although it was a life or death situation, I was not going to allow it to defeat me. So once again, I grew further. In any situation that I encountered after that, because it was never an easy climb or an easy fight, I just continued to grow because I know what it feels like to not have the opportunity or the ability to grow in a situation. And I will never allow defeat in my life because it is just not to the core of who I am. It's unacceptable for me.
Mm-hmm. I concur. You know, there are so many monumental stories that I think we all had. You know, I always think about this as feelings or different things that have been extremely important to my growth aspect of everything. I always go back and talk about a couple different things, and one being a lot of the things that I learned when I was in high school as they pertain to um, growing up and doing things in a different way, and how important they are to the development of where I am now. But also believe that everything that we learn, all of our trials, our tribulations, they are all for a reason. I don't think that any of us go through things without a end result or a predestined plan that was there for us. And it just seems like sometimes we don't harness that or accept that. You know, I go back and I talk a lot about the fact that whatever happened to us in our past, one is in our past, but had we ever stopped to think that those things that happened to us could have been the direct result of stopping us from reaching down a path that we truly didn't need to go? And it's never more paramount to the times I think about the times that I did not do the things that I should have been doing inside of not only school but inside of my personal life or other things or elements that are still doing today. You know, one of the things that I kind of want to touch on real quick is being able to lift your head, because I'm going to tell a story after I have you have an opportunity to discuss this. But there were times I'm sure that where you wanted to, I guess I want to say, for lack of better words, check out, call it quits. You felt that there was no silver lining, or there was no end to the situation. I didn't say problem. I said the situation that you were in. Can you take a couple minutes and kind of outline one of those scenarios? Because I think we all have had many, but outline one of those scenarios of what it was like to actually begin to go through and then evolve into the next level.
I think for me, coming home from prison, that was difficult. But one, I fought and I gained custody of my daughter. And in my mind, I had pictured this wonderful reunion, right? This house full of love and a stable environment for her. And I had done so much work on myself at that time in my life that I wanted to be able to provide for her something that I wasn't able to provide for years. And when I won custody of her back, it was not the situation that I had envisioned in my mind or even in my heart. It was very difficult. And for years, I fought and I fought and I fought, and therapists quit on us and over and over and over. And it was like sometimes I felt like a prisoner in my own home. And there was a time that I was ready to give up. She was just adamant that she did not want to be with me. She had been with me for years at this point and had a great life, but she had just been poisoned so badly against me that she wanted to go back to the environment that she was in before me. And so I was to the point where I was just throwing my hands up and I was going to allow her to go back because I felt defeated. And I remember I had a call with my mother and my father at that time separately. And both of them said to me, "You fought so hard to get to this point in your life. You fought so hard for her. Don't you dare give up and hold your head down in shame. You wanted this. And sometimes the things that we want, they don't come easily, but you fought so hard. So don't give up now. Continue your fight. And one day, this will just be a bad part of your history, but it'll be better in your future." And ironically, when her brain aneurysm rupture happened, I knew by about the third or fourth day in there that it wasn't about her brain. It was about us fixing a very fractured relationship that was much too deep a wound for anyone else to be able to fix. It was spiritual, it was heavy. And so I held my head in shame for a little while, but ultimately I decided not to give up and I moved forward And I just kept hustling every day. I raced to the finish line in my work. I did everything that I could to prove to her that I was a great mother, that I was a good woman, that I was worthy of being loved, and showing her that I had changed. And so I think at different points in our lives, we all go through these things, regardless of what it is for you. But at the end of the day, the only person that can make you get up every day and change your scenario or the outcome of your future, it is you.
My mic was muted. If there was one word that you can give our listeners right now as we get ready to wind this down, um, that they can utilize as they go through this storm, because I don't think it's not a if, it's a when. We all are going to have them. We all are going to go through them. What would that word be and why?
Tenacity. Because you have to be tenacious in everything that you do to move forward in life. Whether it is that you've been incarcerated, or you've got a family member that's incarcerated, or maybe it has nothing to do with that at all, but it's just a storm. And we all have storms, right? And we're all going to go through them. And it's okay to go through them, but you got to grow through them.
Mm-hmm.
But you also have to come out tenacious, saying to myself, you know what? I was trusted with this storm. So therefore, it was meant to birth something on the inside of me. I tell women every time I go in to a woman's prison and I speak to them, I say, you have the ability to give life. You can birth something on the inside of yourself. Look in the mirror every day and say, I am worthy. I deserve to have a great life. I deserve to get out of here and never look back. I deserve to not identify with this situation any longer. But you have to be tenacious, because if you come out weak, if you come out with your head down, if you come out feeling like I am not worthy, I am invaluable, and I am less than, then that is how people are going to perceive you. But when you walk in that room like, I belong here, I will own this building one day, that presence, that tenacity, people see that and then they believe it because you believe it.
Mm-hmm. It's all about our perception, all about how we believe in ourselves and the power that we have between ourselves. Now, I say we have to go through to get through.
Mm-hmm.
That's a basic premise. We have to go through something to get on the other side, to get through something. Yeah, Jen, if our listeners or viewers tonight want to connect with you, ask you some additional questions, what's the best way you want them to connect with you?
They can either email me or they can reach out and follow my Instagram page, and they can direct message me there. Either way, whichever is best for them. Instagram is also a good place to follow too, because I do post a lot about different career opportunities that I have coming up, or connections that I have for individuals that may be in a situation where they are looking to, they need an opportunity, they need a career start, they feel like they don't have enough skill or what have you, or the right opportunity. I do have a program that is coming out where I teach individuals to do exactly what I did, and you will be your own boss, working from home, making six figures part-time. It is a very simple process. It's just an untapped market that people don't know about. So I am going to start releasing that very soon. And it is a great thing, especially for people that are in areas where they feel like there's just not an opportunity. It's less than $500 for you to start this company, and it's literally no overhead. So it is a great opportunity. So if you follow me on Instagram, you'll see those things coming up, and I would love to be able to plug people into that.
Thank you, Jennifer, sharing for all that, sharing that powerful wisdom tonight. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. Thank you so much. Everybody, reach out to her if you have any additional questions. I think that's so key and so important. I want to send a special thank you to one of our new sponsors, LN Productions, whom are doing some amazing video and movie production. So stay tuned for more of them coming. Let me close with that story that I promised that I think is key. And I want to put the bow tie on some of the things that you heard tonight regarding life. Recently, I had dinner with someone who told me that one of my best friends had been killed in a private plane crash. Excuse me. Something happened at the service that he'll never forget. At that memorial service, his friend's wife walked to the podium to speak to the mourners. She said a friend had asked her the best memory she had of their life together. Now, she had been in grief and very tongue tied, but she thought through it since she wanted to answer all the questions and didn't want to dodge anything. They were in their late 50s when he died, and she began talking about a time in their lives almost 20 years ago. She had quit her job to obtain her master's degree, and her husband never wavered in his support. He held down his own job and did the cooking, cleaning, and other household chores while she studied for her degree. One time, they both stayed up all night. She was finishing her thesis, and he was preparing for an important business meeting. That morning, as she walked out of the loft, she looked at him over the railing and just thought about how much she loved him. She knew how important this meeting was to his career, and she was feeling guilty that she didn't even take the time to make him breakfast. He grabbed his briefcase and hurried out. She heard the garage door open and close, but to much of her surprise, she heard it open again, and about 30 seconds later, from that time that he left. From above, she watched her husband dash into the house and walk over to the neglected coffee table. Tracing his fingers through the dust, he wrote the words, "I love you." Then he raced back to his car, paused for a minute, and then looked at her and said, "John, you're a wonderful man." I tell this story because we've all been around the world several times. We've always had everything and had money, had things that we can utilize, but nothing comes close to a moment of our lives in life that can fly by us in lightning speed. Although he was very proud, or she was very proud of her business accomplishments, in the end, her life comes back to that loving and being loved. So, this story about this husband's random act of love always reminds me that the smallest things, the very smallest things, can make the biggest difference in life and what we learn. It also reminds me to do the little things for people I love and show them how much they mean to me. Life. Life is so impactful. Life takes on a twist and turns of so many different things and embarks us in so many different ways. I think what you have to remember is that it is a journey. We can't stop when something fails. We must continue to push on and persevere to get to the levels that we need to go. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to think about who you can affect over this next couple of days. Who really needs to know that the life that they're leading is not a bad life. It's a great life, but they just need to let go of inferior feelings that are expressed. If you haven't had an opportunity to listen to any of the messages in the process, please do so. You can catch those on Anchor, you can catch those on Spotify, you can catch those on TuneIn, as well as any other social media platforms as well. Don't forget, there's a new release of the current series. If I only knew then what I know now, that's going to be February 5th. Again, on all those outlets. I need you to do me a favor. I always say that change begins and ends within. So no matter what you do, no matter where you go, your life is on the stage. It's on center stage. So it's up to you to how far you want that light to shine. Again, make this what I say it's going to be, which is legacy changing actions in 2022. Thank you. God bless. I will see you soon. Take care.